the fashion industry is cyclical. Something will go out of style and then it will come back in style. And part of that is on purpose so that they can sell more. So now block heels are in style and then wedges are in style. Our worry is that fur will eventually come back, right? That at some point people are going to come forward and say, this is cool, this is new, and we can get top buyers, consumers to pay for it.
It better not come back while I'm still alive.
I know. Well, I do think consumers are switching, and when there's an alternative that's slaughter-free, cruelty-free, it's really hard to come in and say, there's practically two identical items. One is better for the environment, one uses no animals, yet I'm going to go out of my way to choose the one that's bad for the environment and is cruel? Like, who are you to do that?
You're evil. What the hell is up, you guys? My name is Jamie Logan, and today I have a special guest, Nicole Rawling. She is the founder and CEO of Material Innovation Initiative. I'm so excited to have you. Thank you.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
For those of you guys that don't know, MII, Material Innovation Initiative, is an organization that is working towards advancing next generation materials. What does that mean? What is that?
Yeah. So we define next-gen materials as meaning no animals are harmed in the production of the material, and the material is better for the environment than animal-based or synthetic materials. And so we're constantly trying to improve on that environmental footprint, but at very minimum, no animals can be harmed.
Incredible. And so I actually connected with you guys a few years back when I was working on a film called The Face of Fashion is Fear. And you were kind of the go-to source for data and information when it came to sustainable fashion, when it came to materials and their footprint on the planet, I guess you could say, how long they last. And you guys are really providing that information for brands. You work with scientists, you work with organizations, nonprofits, brands, and you're doing incredible work. So why don't you just break down what MII is and how it started?
No, thank you for recognizing that, because at the Material Innovation Initiative, what our goal is to help the industry get to use next-gen materials as quickly as possible. So our belief is that eventually everyone will use next-gen materials. People do care about the environment. We can't continue polluting as much as we are, but we can't wait that long. And so by being a nonprofit coming into the industry, doing an analysis of where we need to have more work, where do we need to have more scientists, where do we need to have more investment, and then connecting people to make that happen and providing that information the whole industry can use to just help them get the business done. Mm-hmm. It accelerates that process a lot quicker than it would happen without us.
It's amazing. And you guys are really helping to push that needle on the more professional side. Mm-hmm. You're in those rooms with those brands, with those people in power that can and have the ability to make that change. And then there's people like me that are spilling blood on the streets and wearing, anti-leather signs on coach runways. We do it all. We need it all.
We do. And I think that's, for me, there's so much that needs to be done, and there's no one way to do it, right? That we need to be educating everyone about what's happening, because I think so many people are still really unaware. Even within the industry, they're unaware of how animals are treated and even the environmental impact. And so the more we can reach people on the levels where they are, right, the better, the more effective we'll all be.
So there's a lot of confusion with people about the fact that vegan materials are not sustainable. There's a lot of polyurethane and other plastics used, maybe the life cycle, they don't think it breaks down. So in this episode, you guys, we are really going to break down the data, the stats, the science and the figures behind these numbers to really show and prove that vegan sustainable materials are possible and that they do exist. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the challenges that some brands might be facing when transitioning. Maybe it's because some materials are not available. So we'll talk about the steps in getting them to change and some of the successes you have had and maybe some of the frustrations as well. So Nicole, why don't you backtrack and take me a little bit through how you even got into this world of fashion, veganism, and sustainability?
Well, honestly, I think like so many people who are animal advocates and really care about animals, it first started connecting to animals. Like, of course, I grew up with dogs, and I just didn't see a difference between a dog and a pig or a cow, right? They both have such strong personalities and are individuals. Why are we, loving one, having them in our bed like man's best friend, and then the other hand, literally torturing and murdering the other species? It just doesn't make any sense. And so I think that's when I first came to it, actually when I was very, very young. But I was kind of anti being an animal advocate for a while. I think I wanted to change the system from the inside. So I ended up going to law school, wanted to be a lawyer to advocate for animals. And I ended up doing that for over 10 years.
Wow.
Mostly suing factory farms for environmental violations.
Oh my God, you're such a badass. That's amazing.
It's easy going doing in a suit and,
Incredible.
in court.
Oh my God, I did not know that.
Well, it's so hard. I'm sure a lot of your listeners know that there's very few laws that protect farm animals, that how we treat them is considered, if it's customary in the industry, it's legal. So tail docking, right? Pulling out testicles, like with no anesthesia, all completely legal, right? And so it's very hard to stop those practices without changing the law. And right now, right, we know how functional government is. That's just not going to happen. And so the animal-based foods, animal-based materials are all so much worse for the environment. And so we can actually hold industry accountable for that type of pollution.
And then these industries are claiming, oh, happy cows, happy chickens, they live free range, they're organic, they're grass fed. It's like literally anybody go step inside one of these places. I don't care if they call themselves family farm, humane, whatever. Go yourself and look inside these places and get footage. And then you'll see just how many lies there are. And then somebody like you can then go in and be like, we have all of this evidence. Now we're going to sue you for your lies and just inhumanity. It's like, what is wrong with you?
I know, well, and I will say the poor slaughterhouse workers, a lot of them don't have options, right? And it's one of the worst, most dangerous jobs in the country. And they have a lot of mental health issues too. It's just not working for anyone except for the owners of the massive, meat animal conglomerates. And I will say for anybody who's seen undercover investigation videos and thought, no way, like that can't be true. I used to oversee, and also from a legal perspective, gathered this evidence and reviewed the footage. Awful job. And it's true, right? This is not animal advocates just cherry picking out things that happen once, right? These undercover investigations are accurate, and people should believe what they see.
These are standard practices, unfortunately, and these are legal practices. That doesn't make it right or humane by any means. So, okay, well, that's really interesting. So you got kind of drawn into this from an animal-loving perspective, and now you're taking things up a notch and you're like, I really want to see change and I want to see it happen now. Yeah. So you founded Material Innovation Initiative, and what exactly was that like first step into fashion that made you want to target that and move away from the food system?
Yeah, so I was in the food system for a couple years doing something very similar, so helping to create like plant-based alternatives to animal-based products. And it worked so well. I mean, all of us know those products now. They were not on the market, right, 6-8 years ago. Like the industry has skyrocketed, and it just works well, and again, I think there's room for a lot of approaches, but not forcing people into decisions. Offer them things that are amazing, right? The plant-based foods are so good. And with so many of them, you can't tell the difference, right? And so you're getting something that's healthier, better for the environment, zero cruelty, for very similar prices in same places that you can purchase animal-based meats, right? And that's why people are switching. And so when that worked so well, my thought was, why not expand this? Why not take what we've done there and just apply it to vegan materials? Because people, like I know even a lot of vegans aren't totally aware of everything that's going on. Like I get asked, what's the matter with wool all the time? Or what's the matter with silk, right? I mean, most people know not to wear fur, right? But even leather, there's this misconception that it's a byproduct. And so I love the idea of taking a theory of change and a way of working that proves successful and applying it to a different industry.
And let's talk a little bit about how these farmed animals that are raised for food are also used to produce leather and other fat items in the fashion industry. Why is leather not a byproduct? Yeah.
So when I think about byproducts, right, you think about it as something that's left over that is just bringing in a little bit of extra money for that industry, right? Otherwise, it would just be waste. It's not something that is required to keep that industry alive, right? If it's required to keep the industry alive, it's not technically a byproduct, right? It's a necessary component of that industry. And that's what leather is. And so one of the issues with leather and conducting this analysis is leather is a commodity, and the prices for leather do change weekly, and they are different all around the world. So I'm going to talk in averages. So leather on average is about 5% of the value of a cow, right? So it seems pretty small, but animal agriculture is notoriously a low margin business. Guess what the margin of profit is on a cow?
Would it be their meat?
It's 5%.
What?
Yes. So the cattle ranchers are actually only getting 5% profit on each animal. So guess what happens when you take away the 5% profit from leather?
They're not getting the money.
There's no profit. What happens when there's no profit?
No incentive to produce.
Right? Exactly. So they either have to close or they have to raise the price of the other products they are selling, which means that mainly beef, right? That's like ground beef is the main component. They're going to have to raise the price. And so what happens when you raise the price of a product? You get lower demand. So less people will then buy the beef products, and they may be incentivized to then buy plant-based products because they're at more price parity. And so we've talked to a number of economists who have said, look, actually, a really good way to end the beef industry is to focus on leather. I know, even though it's such a small margin, it's actually not the volume that matters. It's the profit. And that's what people have to think about, right? It's profit-driven industry, not volume-driven.
So people that eat beef, I'm guessing they would say something along the lines of, well, then I, of course, want to buy leather because I want to keep eating meat. How would you respond to that?
So, I mean, if you're looking at it from that perspective, yeah, they're right. I mean, you could contribute to more animal cruelty. You could contribute to more greenhouse gas emissions. You could contribute to more eutrophication and water pollution. If that's the way you'd like to spend your money in destroying the planet, then that's your choice. I would not advocate for that. And actually, if I can share some interesting statistics.
Please.
So, and this is where I think I was so excited about materials versus food, because all of us have had conversations with people with food, and it's so hard to convince people who are really set in their ways that they should move away from meat, right? It's, well, I need meat, right? Your body needs it. Or my grandmother's recipe for chicken pot pie. Or I don't want to eat technology, right? I want to eat something natural, right? Because we all know it's not actually natural. So it can be really hard. But for materials, people are actually very excited about technology, right? Like think Gore-Tex. Everyone knows what Gore-Tex is. It's technology in your clothing. People love technology on your phones, right? So you get, leather cases, right? Apple just decided they're moving completely away from leather. And then people, it's not this cultural attachment that people feel with food. And it's kind of new and sexy, right? With fashion industry, it's always something new. And the fashion industry is so much more focused on sustainability. So we did some consumer research, both in the United States and China, the biggest consumer countries in the world. In the United States, 92% of consumers are open to next-gen materials. 41% are highly likely to purchase next-gen materials, and 39% would pay more.
That's pretty good.
It's really good. Now listen to China. 70% of even more Chinese, more people in China, 70% are highly likely to purchase next-gen materials, and 61% would pay more.
That's amazing.
I know. So if we want to have some little American-Chinese competition going here, they're more sustainable and care more about animal rights than we do.
So when you then go to a brand, you can bring up these numbers and say, look, consumers want this. What's stopping them from hopping on to using next-gen materials? Why are they stuck in their ways?
No, and that's exactly why we did it, because we hired a third party. So this wasn't us doing it. It was an actual professional consumer researcher. Well, in all fairness, I have to give the brands a little bit of leeway right now because there aren't a lot of next-gen materials on the market. There's some, so as consumers, you can go out and buy some, and I'm happy to show some things I brought with me. But when you're talking brands and mass market, there's not a lot that they can buy in volume to meet their requirements. Right. It's also technology that's in development. And so some of the materials aren't at the aesthetic or performance needs that industry needs, right? There are a lot of companies who are working on it, like Ganni. I want to give a ton of credit to Ganni. Ganni's gone completely leather-free, right? So they've made commitments going leather-free. Actually, if I can talk about some very exciting news that happened within the last few weeks, Gucci just came out with their own material. Gucci is creating their own next-gen material, 70% plant-based, like no animals harmed.
What's the other 30?
So they haven't disclosed that.
But it's vegan.
Yes, it's vegan.
Okay.
So definitely no animals.
Thank God.
And they announced it with Billie Eilish.
Incredible.
Yes. So you have Gucci, like one of the top, if not the top, worldwide fashion brand. And they're saying we're putting money into creating our entirely own next-gen material. Like, that's what brands need to do. They need to be doing what they can with the current next-gen material companies. They could create their own lines, or they can invest, right? It's really easy. These companies need investment to go into R&D, to go into production, to work on scale. Like, actually put your money behind where you say your values are. Right? Prove to us that you actually care about animals and the environment. And I think that's what the industry needs right now.
I mean, when I was researching for that short doc that I was working on, The Face of Fashion is Fear, it was mind-boggling how H&M claims sustainability and claim this and claim that. And I was like, you're still using wool. How can you claim that that's sustainable? How can you claim that that's not cruel? Because wool is cruel. They kill all of the sheep when they're done with them. And wool, it's oftentimes the workers are paid not by the number of sheep they shear, but the weight of the wool so that they're incentivized to go as fast as possible. The sheep end up with like wounds that are open. They sew them and stitch them up. I mean, it's disturbing. And yes, sheep are bred to have that much wool. Normally, before we domesticated them, sheep in the wild did not have to be sheared the way that they are now. So it's like we've created this problem. Let's stop breeding these animals into existence to then have to do that.
Well, and actually I have a interesting story. So one of the brands that we worked with invited me along on a trip they were taking to what they said was the cream of the crop wool facility.
Oh my God. That
everybody should strive to be like this particular wool facility. And they were kind enough to let me go with them. And I asked some probing questions. I had to be very respectful. But number one, the facility was not profitable, and this was in California. The facility was not profitable if they did not breed all the sheeps and kill half for meat. So people say that they're actually not killing the animals when they're producing wool. No, that's not true. Every year they have to breed them and they sell the baby lambs for meat, right? So that's number one. Two, the reason they were so excited about this facility is because it sequestered carbon, right? And so now there's so much effort to take carbon out of the environment. Wonderful. We should all be trying to do that as well. But the way they did it was buying manure from a local compost facility and then putting that compost on their land. It had nothing to do with the wool. And so I did some research, again, my legal background, and it's very useful in situations like this. So I did some research on the compost facility, and where most of that compost came from was the dairy industry. So they were actually paying into animal agriculture to then claim that they were sequestering carbon.
Unbelievable.
And it's again unrelated to the wool. So it's wonderful they're using that. I mean, people, if you have a lot of land, sure, sequester carbon with it, but it's not because of the wool production.
And you can sequester carbon without the use of animals. Like, the animals are what's creating the problem in the first place. Exactly. You have all these, like, you know, terms like regenerative agriculture, and we know that this is not a term that's been scientifically proven. No. It's just pseudoscience, honestly.
And there's no standard definition. It means different things to different people.
Do you know much about regenerative agriculture and what it is could you break it down in a...
So it's not my area of expertise, but what I can say is, in theory, it makes a lot of sense, right? It's talking about a circular system. So what we take out of the environment, we need to be able to put back in, right? And what we put back in has to be good for the environment, right? We can't be taking out things, making them into chemicals, changing them around, and then putting back those chemicals. So that idea of regeneration makes a lot of sense. The problem is, then what does that mean? How do you implement that? And for a lot of people, it is including animals in that system, right? So if you are sequestering carbon in an area, you usually need to put something on, and then they have the crops, whatever it is, and then they have animals walking in between the crops, and so then the animals will put their manure in the crops, and then that's a natural way to fertilize. And that's how I think most people think about it. And they think, oh, well, I'll just buy my meat from regenerative agriculture facilities. The problem is there is no way that we can meet any global meat demand with that amount of animals, right? And people forget that, sure, maybe if you're eating meat once a week, right, that might be possible, right? But nobody's willing to do that.
No.
Right?
And it still doesn't excuse the animal cruelty aspect that goes into it. So I guess when we look at next-gen materials and the production of these materials, and as we start to phase animals out of the food chain, the supply chain, the fashion industry, hopefully in the next decade or so, we're working on it, right? So what goes into the production of certain next-gen materials? What's their life cycle? Are there certain ones that you recommend? Tell me about those and what they are.
So it's actually a pretty diverse industry. So I will say there's a number of different technologies that are used. Some are plant-based, right? So they take the waste of agriculture. Piñatex is a good example. They're taking the leaves from pineapple production facilities, and those leaves wouldn't otherwise be used. So they take those leaves and they make it into a material. Another example is Deserto. They take cacti, and they're just taking the cacti. It's not used for food, but it's regenerative. It grows on its own, and then they make leather based on the cacti. There's others using microbes or like precision fermentation. So think about it as in the food industry, there might be big vats of microbes that are growing, and then they take those microbes and then they can grow material out of it. There's blends. So you can take anything like that, blend it with synthetics, right? That's what some people are doing. There's cultivated. So just like in the food industry where you have cultivated meat. You're taking animal cells and you're growing those muscle cells to create a steak or beef food. We can do the same with leather.
Wow.
Right? It's muscle cells versus skin cells. So there's a wide variety of technologies in this space. Not all of them are on the market yet. So cultivated, I think there's around 4% of the companies in the space are working on cultivated, but you couldn't go out and buy cultivated leather now.
And it's only going to get more convenient and more available. We were talking a little bit before about how if you go into Walmart or TJ Maxx or Payless or wherever you get your shoes, I go to Moose Shoes because I just know that they're vegan. And I don't really buy shoes. I just kind of wear whatever 5 to 6 pairs that I have. But when you look at these, when you go to these stores and you see the labels of what type of ingredients or materials are used, it's sometimes hard to like read. I'm like, wait, that's a leather skin? That looks like an alphabet letter to me. It's really hard to know. And then it's like, wait, the glues that are in some of these shoes are not vegan. Obviously the skins and materials. So when going shopping, like what do you recommend consumers look for, or how do they tell what's vegan?
So my recommendations for everyone going shopping is, number 1, buy less. Like we all just need to buy less. So I love what you said. You have 5, 6 pairs of shoes and you're using them all. 2, buy pre-owned clothing, right? Or shoes. I just went to a great place in New York today that had great secondhand clothes, also upcycled. So they take clothes, they re-sew it into new fashions, and then you have very unique pieces. So there's number 1, there's number 2. Then 3, if you do need to buy new things, of course, people do, buy high quality. Right? Don't buy fast fashion. Buy things that you're going to use multiple times for multiple years. Now, when you're looking at high quality, that is when I would get more into the materials, right? So animal-based materials are by far the worst for the environment. On the whole, next-gen materials are 90% better for the environment than animal-based materials. Synthetics are also bad for the environment. So next-gen materials are 40% better for the environment than synthetics. So really look for the next-gen materials. Right now, that is pretty hard, right? Because there's not a lot on the market. If I can give a little shout out to Tory Burch. So here's a Tory Burch bag that's made with a modern meadow material. This is a plant-based material, and you can go buy this now.
Wow. I mean, it feels amazing. It's really soft. It's cute. It's
multiple beautiful colors. I've had this for a while. It still looks brand new. So find places, and actually you can find a lot of them on our social media or our website. We like to feature these type of products.
That's great.
And then go to brands that you trust. So we were talking earlier about places like the Brave Gentleman. So I think, men don't do a lot of shopping in general, and where they do, they buy things more long term. The Brave Gentleman's great, really high quality things, and they're making the decisions and using the best materials that they can.
Right.
Now, that's not to say they don't use synthetics, right? But you can trust those brands to be making those right decisions.
So how do you feel about secondhand leather or secondhand fur?
So it's a great question, and I think there's a wide variety of perspectives on this. So I will admit that I do have a wool coat that was gifted to me, didn't pay for it, and every time I wear it, I think about those sheep, and I think, this material's amazing. Like, this material's really amazing. This is what we have to create, right? Because I think that's what a lot of people miss, is it's very hard to get top fashion luxury to go with lower quality. I mean, when people are spending thousands of dollars on their items, they expect quality. And we can get there. That's totally possible. I mean, Gucci's, announcement with Demetra is a perfect example, but we need to meet that quality. And so for me personally, I use that coat as a constant reminder about doing it. I don't buy secondhand leather or silk or wool, but that's a personal choice. My thought is other people would want to buy that and who would wear leather and wool, and maybe I'm helping them buy secondhand rather than traditional, but
Emma Hackinson, who I had on a few weeks ago, Collective Fashion Justice, I asked her this question, and she told me a story about how she was wearing leather shoes secondhand at a sanctuary, and she was doing work, and she lied down with one of the cows, and she was petting the cow and looking at the cow in the eyes, and then looking down at her shoes and thinking, oh my God, this is her relative's skin, basically. I can't wear this anymore. And that was the connection with her, because she described it as she didn't want to go around promoting that it's okay to wear that animal's skin. And so I also got to a point where a few years into my veganism, I was like, I had maybe one pair of leather shoes that I hadn't given away or donated yet. And I was like, I can't wear this anymore. It feels like hypocritical. I'm going around preaching this, but then wearing this. So I could see how, okay, in terms of the environment, maybe the second hand is obviously not worse because you're recycling it, at least you're using it. But in terms of like the ethics of it, that's where I couldn't rationalize it.
Well, and that was an individual.
Yeah.
Right? That's the hard thing, is that that animal was alive, probably not enjoying their lives, and then fought when their life was taken. Right? And I think that's really hard for people who are compassionate, and, you just don't want to affect others like that.
And especially when it comes to fur, I think of it in terms of when we are wearing this secondhand fur on the street, people looking at you don't know it's secondhand, number one. And number two, it perpetuates this idea that we should still be using animals for a fashion statement instead of taking a stance against it and saying, no, I'm not going to use this or wear this, and donating that coat back to the animals, such as there's an organization called Coats for Cubs, where they actually rehab sick and orphaned animals by wrapping them in the fur, which helps them, I guess, feel like their mother is around, or it's an amazing organization. And I think there's a few like that.
No, there is. And I've debated, because it was very nice of one of the Next Gen material companies, one of the founders offered me a free Next Gen fur coat. But I didn't take it because, again, it's amazing how real it looked. And I didn't want anybody to think that I was wearing a real fur coat.
Yeah.
And we've debated about that internally. Like, is Next Gen fur worth it? Like, should we be doing this? Because it's very clearly, like, looks like animal hair.
Wow.
Right? It looks amazing. But here's where, in discussions with the fashion industry, the reason why we still think Next Gen fur is important is the fashion industry is cyclical, right? That something will go out of style and then it will come back in style, right? And part of that is on purpose so that they can sell more. So now block heels are in style, right? And then wedges are in style, and now stilettos are in style, right? So you're forced to then keep buying more and more and more to stay up to date with the times. Our worry is that fur will eventually come back, right? That at some point people are going to come forward and say, this is cool, this is new, and we can get top buyers, consumers to pay for it.
It better not come back while I'm still alive.
I know. Well, I do think consumers are switching, and when there's an alternative that's slaughter-free, cruelty-free, it's really hard to come in and say, there's practically two identical items. One is better for the environment. One uses no animals. Yet I'm going to go out of my way to choose the one that's bad for the environment and is cruel? Like, who are you do that?
You're evil.
Yeah.
And also in terms of diseases, you have these mink farms that had to shut down not too long ago because of outbreaks of, I think, COVID-19 and, other really serious diseases that can spread to humans and cause another pandemic. It's just, there's really no pros to that industry whatsoever. It's just very cruel and inhumane. I think one concern a lot of people have when it comes to vegan materials is the fact that they think it's some hippy-dippy BS that's going to fall apart and that's not going to look cute. Yeah. So you just showed us your bag not too long ago. What are these vegan materials that, like, do they not break down? How does that work?
Yeah, so that is that's something that I think technology in general is struggling with, not just in materials or the fashion industry. How do you make something durable for the period where it needs to be used, but then at end of life, right, can go back into the system, right, is circular. And there really are no good solutions at the moment, right? And even for things where there are solutions, so little is recycled, right? So in the fashion industry, there's only 4% recycling, right? It's so low. And even those systems have problems. And so right now, the industry is trying to tackle both. And what I'd love to remind everyone, that this is really a brand new industry. 10 years ago, there were basically no companies in the space, right? And so every year, more and more companies are coming. They're engaging in R&D. Even the companies that have products on the market are still engaging in R&D.
What is R&D again?
Oh, like research and development.
Got it.
So they are constantly trying to improve because they recognize, let's say they got to a point where some companies have to use 5% petrochemicals, PU, polyurethane within their materials to make it durable, to make it work for the industry. Is that acceptable? No, we should get to a point where we're using 0 petrochemicals, right? And they understand that. But guess what? 5% petrochemicals is still better than 100% petrochemicals and better than animal-based materials. So let's support the industry and those players who are making significant progress, because innovation takes time, right? And so my view on the issue you're asking about is a lot of the materials right now are meant to be more durable. So they can get to the market, they can be used, because at end of life, the vast majority of the stuff is thrown away. And even if it ends up in a landfill and is biodegradable, it doesn't biodegrade because it's not getting the air, the oxygen, the circulation that material needs to actually biodegrade, right? And so since everything's ending up in the landfill, in the end, as long as it's not leaching chemicals, right, it doesn't really matter. But it's something that the industry is definitely working on and trying to, because it needs to go back into the earth in a healthy, sustainable way.
Yeah, sometimes I sit and I think, and I'm like, oh my gosh, when we think of the plastics that we use to wrap our food in, when we think about the clothes and the materials and furnitures and things, just we're so wasteful as a species, and we create so much garbage and chemicals that just you wonder where it all goes. I mean, there's landfills in the ocean, and it's really upsetting. And you also brought a pamphlet that talked a little bit about that. Why don't you?
So I can show you this, because this was a surprise to me. So I have been an animal advocate for a few decades, and I really wasn't aware. So this is one of the papers we've written, Impact of Synthetic Materials on Animals, right? And so a lot of people who, we are a nonprofit, we're 94% funded by philanthropy. So for anyone who believes in our work, like, we'd love some donations. But a lot of our donors were initially saying, why not just move from leather to pleather, right? Why aren't we just using synthetics? And my initial reaction was, well, because they're bad for the environment, right? We don't want to move away from, hurting animals to hurting the environment, because guess what? Animals live in the environment, like with all this climate change. I live in California with a lot of wildfires that come out of climate change. And the amount of animals that die in each of those fires, I mean, it's in the trillions. Right? So when you look at insects as well. And so we did this analysis, and synthetic materials, the microplastic, microfibers in the environment, the vast majority come from materials. So those synthetics, right? The pleathers, the acrylics, the nylons, the polyesters. It's in all of our waterways. It's in the air. It affects every single species on the planet.
Wow.
Right? And the problem is with those plastics, they will hold on to toxins. And then once the animal eats it, it'll leach out the toxins. And so with small animals, it actually causes death. And if not, it will cause a lot of reproductive issues, even behavioral issues. And so it's synthetics are just bad for the planet, animals, everyone.
Super scary. Right. So the beauty of vegan alternatives is that there's other materials we can use except for those. We don't have to use those synthetics. Exactly. Leather, on the other hand, there's really no right way to do that. You have to take the animal's life and you have to create a material that doesn't break down. So imagine taking skins, sending them off to other countries to people that then have to dunk them in chemicals that actually die super young. I mean, some of them below 30 years old because they die from cancers from soaking these skins in chemicals to keep them from rotting. And then they also cover that leather in plastic.
They do. Yeah, the petrochemicals are also coated on the leather.
So
about 2%.
Don't you dare come to us and talk about sustainability when it comes to leather. There's no such thing.
Well, and I think exactly what you said. People forget it's skin. So think about this. Like, so these are vegan. Imagine if this was an animal-based skin. Like, there's something different from that and this. What made this into that? It's all those chemicals you're talking about. It's that process, right? So if you take a cow and a cow just dies naturally out in the field and you leave them there, they will decompose within a matter of weeks. But leather lasts for decades, if not hundreds of years, right? Think about it. Why did that happen? Right? It's not a natural process. It's all those chemicals that they put in there. And then, like you said, the impact on the humans. The fashion industry, animal-based materials, it's a huge human rights issue. So not only the chemicals, all of the medical issues coming out of that, there's slave labor, there's child labor. We really have to stop supporting this industry for a variety of reasons.
So there's a documentary that you can watch on Water Bear called Slay by the director Rebecca Capelli. And I am about to see it for the first time on Thursday, but for myself and those that haven't seen it yet, what is it about and what can we learn from it?
Yes, so I've seen it twice. And for anybody who is also more concerned about images of animal violence, I will say I was as well before I watched the film, and it's very tame. So there are some implications in the film, but no direct animal violence. And it really is about the fashion industry and the impact the fashion industry has on animals, the environment, and human rights issues. And Rebecca did an amazing job in going through and identifying all of these facts, grounding it in scientific papers, having discussions with industry. It's a excellent film, and I'm about to see it for my third time this week. And I actually am going to bring a notepad with me because she does such a good job sharing those facts that are backed up by science.
Incredible. Yeah, there's a premiere happening in New York here, so I'm going to be going to see it as well. I'm very excited. That's amazing because to be able to explain these topics in, an hour or 2 hour length film, I think you do sometimes need that long. And she went to different countries, right, to investigate this and to show that these are standard practices. No matter which way we want to look at it, family farm, this is and that. There's no right way to do the wrong thing. And so what you're doing is helping companies move away from those horrific, unsustainable, cruel materials. So when you go to a company, when you go to a brand, what are some of the challenges that you might face at first? What frustrates you sometimes when working with them?
So first of all, and I want to just say this to give credit to the industry, the vast majority of the time people come to us. So people have heard about us, they want to work with next-gen materials, and they're admitting a lack of knowledge, and they're coming to us as experts.
Great.
Let's see, we've worked with or spoken with the vast majority of the top fashion brands across the world. Not fast fashion, right, but all luxury houses. And first, one thing that surprised me is even when they do have sustainability teams, their lack of knowledge of the sustainability of these materials. And even things like animal-based leather is coated in PU. That's actually shocking to a lot of people. And then the understanding that I think the issue is a lot of people want facts, But when you delve into that science, so the life cycle assessments, they're very hard to understand, right? Even for sustainability professionals. And so the industry really does need to recognize that they can bring in experts to help them navigate this process. And you can't wait for perfect data. So this is why I consistently say next-gen materials on the whole are poised to be 90% better than animal-based materials.
Wow.
Because every single company is going to be different. Every company will have a different type of material, and every material is going to have a different environmental impact. In order to make the decision as a brand to move away from animal-based leather or synthetic leather to a next-gen material, do you need 100% perfect data? No. All of the data out there right now shows that these materials are significantly better, even if you give them a high margin of error, right? And so brands who are saying that they need to wait for more data are greenwashing, right? They're just pushing the can down the road because there is sufficient data now to take action, even if it's not perfect. So that's one thing that does frustrate me a little bit with the brands. The second thing is most brands do not own their supply chains. So there's a few luxury houses like Hermes as an example.
I was just going to bring them up.
That they do own a lot of their leather supply chains, but most brands don't. I think, number one, a lot of the fashion industry has to think about potentially owning or investing in their supply chains so there's more transparency and they can have more control over how the materials are made, where they're coming from. So that's one that they need to do. Two, recognize that this is the future. Do not continue to invest in animal-based materials and put your money and your investment where your social responsibility goals are saying you care about. Put them in next-gen materials. So Hermes, a few years ago, invested $40 million in a new crocodile facility. It is the exact wrong way that we should be going, because that message, right, what investment says is we believe this is the future. We are putting money into something now because we believe in the future it will give us more back.
I mean, are people seriously wearing crocodile skins? I mean, it's not even cute. It's just like fugly and ugly and hateful and...
I don't know. I would hope that it had gone the way of Ver by now, that it's just so unnecessary.
Yeah.
And there's been so many great undercover investigations by places like PETA showing the extreme cruelty in crocodile farms.
I couldn't even watch that footage inside that farm. That was just, I mean... Oh my God. And I see a lot of cruel footage all the time, all day. That was just over the top. I mean, yeah, it's like you need these leaders in the fashion industry to take a stance and invest in next gen materials instead of something like that, because it sends a message to the whole community. Exactly. So Hermes, we're coming for you. I mean,
they're on the wrong side of history.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, in all fairness, they have given money and worked with some next-gen material companies like MICO Works, but far less than they have, right, invested in these animal-based materials. And that's what I'd encourage everybody who cares about animals or the environment to look at, right? Right now, I mean, is Gucci perfect? No. The vast majority of their products have leather, silk, wool, cashmere, but they are taking a stand. They are creating their own material. They are putting a lot of resources into this next-gen material and doing major campaigns with people like Billie Eilish, right? That to me shows that they really do care and are trying, right? But they can't give up everything right now. There's just not enough products in the market. So support them and show them that you believe in that action and go buy those bags.
I mean, when you look at a company like Canada Goose, we did campaigns against them for many, many years here in New York, and activists had really, 4 days a week we're out there protesting against them. Sure enough, they said they're not going to kill any more coyotes and that they're just phasing out whatever fur products they still have left. Hopefully that is, what really happens, but sometimes they just need a kick in the butt. And, Hermes was dissuaded disrupted by PETA this fashion week. We did get them, I think, in Paris, and they did a great job. And, you know, we're going to keep calling you out if you are not going to change with the times. So why don't you just talk a little bit about the successes that you've had over the years with Material Innovation Initiative?
Well, because we are like free consultants to the industry, we are under NDA for a lot of the companies we work with.
Of course.
So unfortunately, I can't talk about some of those successes with materials and the partnerships that's come to market. But what I would say is the thing that excites me the most is the fashion industry continuing to have these conversations, continuing to be interested, continuing to come to our conferences, download our reports, talk to us about these materials, ask for this analysis. Like, we help take them to meet the next-gen material innovators, go to the facilities. A lot of the big brands are doing that work, right? And for any brands that are out there that are watching that are not doing that work, all of your competitors are. So don't be left behind the times, even though I can't mention some names right now. They are, right? Yeah. And so just start working, start reading, start getting information about it. And just the vast number that are doing it, and you can't read about them in the newspaper, right? It's happening behind the scenes. Actually, one thing that really excited me. So this is a $10 billion French luxury brand.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody would know their name. I can't mention their name, but everybody would know their name. And they told me that they want to be the leaders in next-gen materials. So they are waiting. They are doing their work. They are working very hard behind the scenes with all of these companies so that when they announce and they go to market, they're the leaders.
Okay, chills.
I know.
That's so exciting.
Yes. So that's the thing, is that I wish there was more that I could tell, because for any brands that we aren't talking to or who aren't working in this space or getting their own information, you really will be left behind, because that's the smart business practice, right? Why would a lot of these brands who are researching it go out and say, hey, world, we don't have anything yet, but we think this is a future. We're working on it. We just want everyone to know. Of course not, right? They're going to hide this, keep this secret so that when they come to market, their material, their product is the leader and in demand, and they can disrupt, and people will go to them and say, like, amazing job. Like, I am proud to carry a Tory Burch bag. So not only does she do a lot of work for women, right? They have a whole foundation that supports new businesses, women-owned businesses, and she's now moving into next-gen materials and testing it out. Do they use a lot of animal-based materials? Sure. Right? But again, she's working towards the future. Nothing happens overnight.
My one fear would be that some of these luxury brands are going to say, oh, well, you know, if we can make money off of this, why don't we just sell both materials and just have it stay that way? Like, ultimately, if they're doing it to test it out and to see how it's going and then completely switch to vegan leathers and vegan sustainable materials, then I really want to support them. And then that's great. But so many companies and organizations are just in it all about the money, and they don't actually give a damn about sustainability or animals.
So in some ways, I think that's kind of good. So think about it. They're all in it for the money. Number one, the fashion industry doesn't own their supply chain. So unlike the beef industry, right, that they have to sell beef, right? So some places like Tyson are moving into and investing in plant-based meat. But the vast majority of their products that they're selling come from, right, cows, chickens, animals. What about the big fashion brands? They don't own their supply chain. So they can easily move from animal-based leathers to next-gen leathers without any, like, selling off businesses or losing profit.
I see what you're saying.
The switch can happen very easily. The second thing is, look at the consumer demand, right? All of those numbers, right? 92% of U.S. consumers are open to, right? I think my statistic was like 61 are highly likely to. And then you look at China, 70% are highly likely to, and 61% will pay more, right? With a business that's focused on profit and has to sell things for consumers, there you go. That's what your consumers want. right? And so they can switch easily, and they will switch with consumers. But what we all need to do is to continue to tell them, guess what? I don't want you to continue to hurt animals. I'm not going to buy that. I want you to move away from that, and I want to buy next-gen materials. And so the protests give that message. The consumer research gives that message. The demand for next-gen materials gives that message. So if anybody can afford Gucci bags, like, show Gucci, I support this, right? I'm going to buy these bags. And if that bag line is successful, Gucci's going to say, hey, we made money off of that. We should do it again. Right? The same with Tory Burch. If consumers are going to move away, a business that's focused on profit will move with consumers.
That does make a lot of sense. Yeah. I just, when I think about myself and a lot of, my vegan friends, we're all kind of hippie in a way. We're like, we're going to Goodwill and that's where we're getting our stuff, but I really do think, people that are shopping at these places already, hopefully they're making the switch and they're buying that. Like, even the non-vegans should be buying, those products, and maybe that'll wake them up, and maybe they'll think, oh, well, actually, if I'm not supporting the leather industry and, I want the planet to be more sustainable, I don't want to participate in cruelty, maybe they'll also switch their eating habits as well.
I would hope so. And I mean, I carry this bag not only because it's just really cute and I like it, but it is such a conversation starter, right? So if you're a consumer and you don't care about the environment, and you don't care about, right, animals, but you like buying things and you like talking about them, what's the story with a plain old Gucci bag? There's no real story. Oh, I have enough money to buy a new Gucci bag, right? That's the story. But what if you can come over and say, look, like, I have the money to buy this Gucci bag, but guess what? I'm a good person. I chose to spend my money on something that doesn't hurt animals and is good for the environment. Right? You have a story with that. I think a lot of people just love spreading new messages.
Yeah. And, there's a part of humans that they want to follow the crowd and, be liked and participate in trends and this and that. But I find that, like, at least when I went vegan, like, I totally stepped outside of that. And I was like, I'm rebelling against all of that. I want to be different. I think being different is cool. And I think it's leading way for change, And so, let this episode, you guys, be a message that, like, we need to be the leaders and we need to show these companies what we want and put our money where our mouths are and where our decisions are, if that makes sense.
Well, and I really appreciate you inviting me because so many people don't know that much about materials yet. It's really a brand new topic. And now I hope that a lot of people will be looking into it and thinking about it and talking about it more.
Well, what better than the expert herself to come on and talk about materials? So where can people find out more information? Obviously, we can only cover so much in an hour podcast episode. Yeah, just share what maybe your handles and where people can get more info.
So, of course, we're on all social media platforms. I think it's just generally at Material Innovation. Instagram's probably our most active, especially with the images of the beautiful pictures of the products. We do share more of the scientific business information on LinkedIn. So that's a good place to keep up to date. And then our website, it's all free resources, right? So, right, the impact of synthetic materials on animals, that's free. You can read about that. Sorry, we are science database, so all these citations.
Wow.
So this is really well researched, right? We're not just sort of putting out some little stuff.
Of course.
And then our State of the Industry report. So this was from 2022. We're putting out another one at the beginning of 2023. It just lays out who are the players in the industry, who are the companies, who are the investors, where's the industry going. So for anybody who might want to invest in the space or is in the fashion industry and making decisions, those reports are really useful. All of our consumer research is on the website, so people can go, just take it. It's all free. Use it all, because that's our job, is to accelerate this industry. And this is the information that we believe everybody needs to make those decisions.
Yeah, and you guys can point to these resources and be like, yeah, there's no way you guys can say that animal-based products are more sustainable because they're not. And here's the data.
Yeah,
and here's
exactly.
the data to show that.
No, we really do, to the detriment of my team too. I mean, it is very important for me for us to have very well researched, fact-based information, right? Because it is an uphill battle, right? And we want people to believe us, and integrity is critical. And these are businesses that we're trying to convince to make decisions. Most of our work is with business, not consumers. And they're smart business people, right? And they will change if we can give them the data that meets their targets.
Absolutely. Well, you guys are doing incredible work, and I'm so grateful to have had you on. And you guys, if you have questions, go reach out to Nicole and the MII team. Obviously, I'm at It's Jamie's Corner, and thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much.
Until next time, guys, we will see you around. Bye.